Welcome to it. Being a marketer for so many years, I've been thinking about all sorts of things, including for instance, when is AI going to rise up and take over my brain, starting with my
It's
job?
about time. I mean, it's about time. If you watch that movie, The Social Dilemma, it turns out it kind of already is, but it's just doing it at a much more passive level. It's not just as overt as like Terminator yet.
Yet. But I would like to talk to an expert. What do you say about that? Do you know an expert that
Me
can?
too. I'd love to talk to an expert. What do you have? What do you have in your back pocket for experts?
Well, I actually have an expert, believe it or not, and this expert is he's a co-founder and a CEO of an AI platform that maximizes content for marketing. And I'm always excited to talk to people who are in the AI field, because sometimes you never know, they might have an answer for us. So what do you say we bring them on?
Let's do it. And then for the record, I love AI. Please don't kill me when you become self-aware. That's all.
And ladies and gentlemen, I'm Andros Sturgeon.
And I'm Justin Womack.
And we are the Marketing Geeks. I can't hear it.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. People can hear our song, but they can't hear us at all. So we can talk.
We're very quiet under the music.
What? Now you know us? Oh, no. We have to scrub my history. And ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the Marketing Geeks radio hour on the internet. Justin, tell us about our guest today, right now.
Yes. Today, depending on where you are in the world or when this gets released, today we are joined by a very special guest. So we have a media entrepreneur, tech visionary, Peyman Nilforoush, who is the CEO and co-founder of the company inPowered. He was named to the who's who in business publishing by BtoBOnline's Media Business Magazine. And he was also a recipient of Profit 100's Young Entrepreneur Award for being the youngest CEO on the Profit 100 list of fastest growing companies in 2009. In his spare time, Peyman enjoys being a charter member of C100, an organization that supports and mentors Canadian entrepreneurs. But please welcome to the show, Peyman Nilforoush. How are you, Peyman?
Thank you for being on the show, man.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So,
absolutely. Pleasure to be on.
So for those who don't know who you are and what you do, why don't you give us a little rundown, if you will?
So, born in Iran, right after the 1979 revolution, and grew up until I was almost a teenager. Migrated to Canada. My dad was a computer engineer, so that's how he got us migrated to Canada. And I grew up in Toronto, Canada, watching a lot of Toronto Maple Leafs playing hockey and the Toronto Raptors becoming a real NBA team. So that really defined the early years. And as we were doing that, me and my brother, this is like late 99, early 2000, we were looking at the web and, coming from Iran, kind of really looking at an environment that's suppressed, like there's no freedom of press. We were always really interested in the value that the web brings to creators, to, independent journalists. And so he was in our parents' basement, coding. He was like 14 years old, building websites. And one of the websites that he was building was for a show you guys are probably familiar with. It's called The Family Guy. Mm-hmm. And, he was building websites. And one of his, with the website he built was called Family Guy. And then, one word was for South Park. His South Park website was the one that really took off. And it was called SP Downloads. Became this amazing community for South Park enthusiasts. And he was a guy who's like, literally a teenager. All of a sudden, he's making like $14,000, $15,000 a month. Comes to me and says, "Look, there's a lot of creators out there that need somebody to monetize their website." And, here is how what we can do is essentially we become the arm for, generating revenue for them so they could remain independent and create amazing content. So that is literally the idea that became ultimately in a company, which we called it Net Shelter. This is our last company, which it ended up being acquired by Ziff Davis in 2013. And that journey from like the beginning to 2013 was like us being a couple of kids who then kind of became entrepreneurs, then raised venture capital, understood what it means to actually build a real business, and then ultimately understanding kind of the whole journey of digital media and how it's kind of started for a lot of creators as the way to generate revenue was selling display advertising. So we had to kind of learn all that, kind of understand the media industry, understand the advertising industry. And ultimately, once we kind of ended up selling Net Shelter, really understood that while the internet is an amazing environment for creators, it's actually not a very good environment for, advertisers that are using banner ads, and it sucks for them because ultimately the normal click through on a banner ad used to be like when we started was like 10%. Today, on a good day, banner ad gets 0.05%. And we're like, man, that really sucks. There's got to be a better way to get people's attention. And that is literally how we came up with inPowered. So we essentially wanted to figure out, if banners suck and they don't work, what people pay attention to is content. So can we be that company that gets content in front of the right people and get them to engage with that content?
So you basically identified your own problem and went out and solved it. So you came to realize that the banner ads weren't generating enough revenue or enough ROI. So then you kind of created this platform for identifying content that actually creates return on investment for businesses. I love that philosophy behind it. So tell me a little bit about, let's go into the new software here. Let's talk a little bit about inPowered, your latest venture, which is a content intelligence platform as it's described on the site, and a content distribution platform as well. Tell me a little bit about like kind of how it works. I know that you're identifying the profitable content, or not necessarily profitable, but content that creates result-driven content. I'm going to call it that because it could be lead gen content. It doesn't necessarily mean financial. It could be lead gen. It could be clicks, driving action. But tell me a bit about the software. Let's get into it.
So 2015, we're launching inPowered, and what became pretty clear were two things. Number one is back then, a lot of marketers didn't have a lot of content, right? They were like, building creative and banners and whatnot. And
Gary Vee was probably not born yet, right?
Wasn't really born yet, right? Fast forward to today, and almost every marketer has a lot of content, has probably more content than they know what to do with it. But the problem that every one of them has is, how do I drive ROI from all this content? How do I not just become part of the noise and figure out what content I should put in front of people to then they end up engaging with me and doing business with me? That basic promise really led us to develop inPowered. And you've nailed it perfectly. On the website, you can see there's two products: content intelligence, content distribution. So our content intelligence product is literally designed for every brand out there that's producing a lot of content to basically implement it on their website and figure out of all the content that they have, which content is actually most effective in driving whatever outcome that they want. So if they want to generate leads, they want to email capture, if they want to push somebody to take an action on their website, which one of these contents that they have drives that particular action. And then once they figure that out, they would then push that out to our content distribution platform which is also AI driven, to figure out how to get the most traffic to that content at the cheapest possible cost.
Do you find that there's any trends with content and high ROI producing content? Like, I mean, we always hear that like live video was one of the top content for a while here, or just video in general. Are you seeing trends across industries, or is it kind of depend on the specific vertical that you're addressing? So just tell me a little bit about like what kind of content is often getting pulled out as a high converting piece of content. Or is there a specific type, or does it vary?
So what's very interesting, and that's like the whole role of AI into this, is really taking out the guessing game, right? So prior to us, what was very difficult is exactly what you said. You know, a marketer, any brand, like they have a ton of content marketing people, they're producing all kind of content. Brands have gotten really good at publishing content that is engaging, that is capturing your attention, that's not trying to sell their product, that's actually like, you know, trying to add some value to what their consumers are doing. Where it's becoming very difficult though is, out of all that content, which one of them is actually, if I want to get like 100 people to submit their email address so I can feed that to my newsletter, how do I do that, right? Which one of these content is going to do that? So before us, it was guessing, right? So take this content and, you know, promote it everywhere and try to get people to essentially, you know, submit their email addresses, and, you know, your cost per email at, you know, capture might be $200. Since we've kind of introduced the software, and by the way, a lot of this had come through, you know, this product that you mentioned, content intelligence, it's literally been developed since COVID, right? So how it all came about is a lot of the clients that we were already working with, they were trying to figure out, well, now since, you know, overnight, my consumer is not thinking about a whole bunch of stuff that they were prior to COVID. They're thinking about hand sanitizers. They're thinking about where they should get their masks. So all this stuff that I developed, I don't even know which one of them resonates anymore. So that's where really the need came from. Like, I can't even guess my way anymore. So can you guys like use your AI to help me figure out what content is resonating?
Yeah.
And so when you ask the question of industry, it's very specific to the content that they're producing. So, you know, I'll give you an example. For healthcare customers that we've seen, a lot of them are producing like long form content, and depending on what they're trying to do with that content, what kind of call to action they're putting on that specific content, we're seeing a variety of results, from like, you know, long form content driving like email signups to short form content driving email sign up. And it has to do with the consumer mindset when they're ending up with that content. What stage of the funnel are they on, and how do you actually use the content to drive them down the funnel?
Makes sense. There's a lot of contributing factors. It just kind of reminds me, I just watched recently a documentary. This is kind of a tangent, but not completely tangent, called Alphago, which is about one of the top players of this game, Go, which is a very famous, very popular game in Asia, not as much in America, but in Asia. And he was taking on the brand new artificial intelligence kind of computer. And throughout, he got crushed by AI the first 2 games, I think. In the 3rd game, he somehow figured out how to beat it. And when they played the 4th game, the AI like learned from him and did this strategy that nobody had ever seen before. And it kind of just like the way that computers think is just completely different than how humans think. So it was doing something that no one had ever seen before. It ended up winning the game, and it ended up also changing the way that this professional, like top 1%, or not the best player in the world, thought about the way he played his strategy, and thought about he had changed the entire way he thought about the game. And so like it just goes to say with content too, because we have our own biases. We think we know what people want, but oftentimes until the computer is analyzing millions of pieces of data in ways that we could never comprehend, we're just playing that guessing game, like you said. So it just kind of that I just thought that story was kind of relevant for how this fits into to your software.
It is, man, because there's predictive AI. So we use a lot of predictive AI, and the predictive AI that we use is like very direct. I mean, it's like you can see it. So if you look at our content intelligence, it's all really what it's doing is you're going on a piece of content, you're ending up on it. All it's trying to figure out is when to serve that call to action that you guys are seeing. So the call to action comes from right bottom of the page, and it's all about when should it serve that and with what headline and specific title to get the most click-through rate. And it is crazy how big of a difference. So we're getting like anywhere between 10 to upward of 40% click-through rate on that call to action ever since we turned on our AI for different brands in different verticals.
So a couple of questions. First of all, I want to take a step back just a little bit and talk about this. This wasn't your first endeavor, right? You were doing other things before that. When you decided to build this platform, what went into it? Like if somebody wanted to build an AI platform, do you know anything about AI? Like how did you put it all together, and how do you
or a SaaS platform too, because it's also that whole software as a service industry too.
It's really interesting when you say that and how it's changed. So interestingly enough, my background, like what I actually study is computer engineering. Right. But that is, back in, late 90s. Right. So when we were building our first company, NetShelter, and all the technology that we needed for that, we were using a lot of outsourcing and whatnot. And it was like you were speccing things out and, you were having a developer to essentially develop that. Right. And, over time, we were able to kind of build a team that would do that, pretty efficiently. Fast forward to today, what we're seeing is like when it comes to like developing technology, like it's the same process. It's just become a lot easier, right? You have Amazon Data Cloud, right? And as you guys probably know, most of the startups in the Valley and elsewhere, it's because of the Amazon Data Cloud that it's this much simpler. You don't have to have all these like fixed data costs, right? To have like thousands of servers that you didn't need. Like that's basically what you needed to do back, in 90s, early 2000. You had a lot of fixed costs. You don't have that anymore. So when it comes to, developing the technology, it's just a lot cheaper to do that now versus that, before, which has kind of created this amazing kind of environment for entrepreneurs, where, to your point, like, you can go from an idea to a prototype to then, kind of get that tested fairly quick. And we've really used that to our advantage. So like, when I'm talking about like, we didn't have content intelligence pre-COVID, right? So this COVID happened, we had content distribution. Our clients are like, look, I got to figure out what content is resonating. Can you use the same AI that you're using for content distribution to just, I implemented Pixel on my website and you tell me what content is resonating. And the team literally prototyped this in weeks. And before we know it, we had like an MVP, a minimal viable product in a matter of weeks. And we went live with it.
Wow.
With existing clients, right? So
well, it's been there's always been like a pattern that during recessions, and I guess it was officially a recession last year, that some of the biggest innovation gets triggered during times of recession and times of kind of like economic desperation. And so that it makes sense that because budgets were cracking down and people were watching their spend a lot closer, that the need for something like this would arise. So that it's fascinating, the origin behind how you pivoted from just distribution side to then into the intelligence side as well, which is a perfect fit. But it's interesting how it wasn't there in the beginning. It came only after necessity through COVID. So wow.
We have a quick question from one of the people viewing the live stream right now, Giovanni Variel. Hope I got your name right. I'm sorry if I didn't. He wants to know, what are your distribution channels at the moment?
So basically, what's crazy about so on the content distribution side, right? One of the things from day one was we're the AI platform that sits on top of every single native distribution. We don't want to have a horse in the game as to where the content gets distributed. We got to distribute it to where it gets the most results. So as a result, we are literally connected to every social and native platform. So from Facebook and Twitter all the way to to Bula, and we're connected to the ad exchanges. So that's the whole programmatic world, through the trade desk. So we literally go across the gamut in order to find the most efficient audience for the content that's being distributed, and we drive it to where it's getting the best results.
So let's say that I wanted to start like a digital cult, and just distribute conspiracy theories, and I just like made up a bunch. Like I made up like 20 conspiracy theories, like
You want to see what sticks?
Yeah, AOC is actually crossbred with an elephant. I don't know, whatever. But if I created this stuff, could I in theory use your software to start my digital cult and find out which conspiracy theory would sit best with the raging lunatics who have nothing better to do with their time but do research?
I don't think anybody's used it for that purpose.
You got a whole new business, buddy. I'm gonna set up my tax exempt status. I'm gonna make myself the messiah. It's gonna be awesome. Dogs and cats living together.
What year did you start inPowered? What year did this company kick off?
We started in 2015.
2015, and then and so tell me about like the initial startup process. So you were only doing content distribution. Like I see on your website that you're now working with some major companies. You might have been working with them back then too, but just from the website, like you're working with companies like AAA, AbbVie, Mutual of Omaha, and Comcast, and there's a lot of Citibank, lots of big name companies, Fortune 500 companies. So how did you land kind of your first couple big clients? Did you leverage past relationships to get some? Tell me a little bit about how you kind of the beginning process of launching this company, because I'm always curious with, like, I would consider this a SaaS company for the most part, how you got started.
Great question. And they're really bullet to it, at least for us, right? So for us, it's exactly what you said, right? So it was basically, we had just sold our last company. We had some existing relationships in place with people that were, our champions, our supporters. They had been kind of helping us in the past. And it was going to those brands and to those agencies and like really kind of coming at it from the standpoint of innovation and something that could solve their pain points, right? And so it was kind of like, look, guys, we're nobody likes banner ads, right? And nobody has got a lot of value from them, but we really think content can work. But we get it. Like, content marketing right now is not necessarily driving a high amount of ROI. It's not scaling, to a point where, digital ad needs to be. So our whole focus is, can we help you guys get more ROI from your content and from your content marketing efforts, so that then you can go to your boss and get more budget for content marketing, and because you've been able to prove to him that if he invested another $100,000 in content marketing, you're able to deliver 10,000 new emails for your newsletter, and that is massive value that then you're going to nurture to turn into new customer.
Well, on that note,
ended
real
up
quick,
being very effective.
Yeah, on that note, real quick, So with your content distribution, you are only distributing organically to platforms, correct? There's no paid content advertising included in that distribution, or is there?
So content intelligence, right, is completely SaaS. Goes on your website, you figure out what content is actually able to get you, the most the ROI that you're looking for.
Yep.
Content distribution, it's all through the paid channels.
Oh, it's all through paid channels. Okay,
It's
got it.
all through paid channels. So content distribution is fully paid. What happened with organic, as you guys know, right? With Facebook and everybody else, it started with amazing, social was this amazing organic channel until overnight it wasn't anymore, right? So
Yep.
in order to actually get out there, everybody needed to, use paid. But our whole philosophy is if you're spending $1 on your paid media, if you use it without AI, you're missing out on somewhere around 5 to 10x more effectiveness that you would get with AI. And that was kind of like our pitch to a lot of the marketers that were currently just on the content distribution side was like, we're not trying to replace Facebook or Twitter or, Taboola. We're literally trying to be the AI that gets you more efficient traffic using the same existing paid channels that you're running.
Got it.
So,
I do love Taboola though. They have all the great headlines, all the clickbait ones.
So when you started doing this, obviously you did it as a because you saw the need, and then did you see your business grow from just the implementation to now in that short amount of time?
So what we saw, so in terms of the content intelligence business that we launched at the beginning of the year.
Mm-hmm.
So content intelligence that we launched at the beginning of the year, where we were fortunate is we had existing clients that were running on content distribution.
I see. So you
Right?
offered
And
it as
so
like a new service to your existing client.
We did, but you know what we did? Yeah, but what we did is we were like, look, it's COVID. You can't, nobody has more money, right? It's not about that. It's like we got to go and actually help offer value, show them the value. So we ended up offering 60 days free trial for content intelligence to existing clients, and then we extended that to new clients. That was a very important part of getting customers for content intelligence, because that free trial enabled them to go and like immediately implement it, get it live in a matter of days, start getting reports that showed what content is driving ROI for them, and then showcase that value internally. That got them real excited, because now that they had data to showcase why this is working out for them, which then resulted in them becoming a paid customer. So that's definitely been something that we've extended to our customers, and it's been very, very helpful for them.
Yeah, because
it's obviously. Oh, go ahead, Andros.
Oh, I was going to say, because that's one of the challenging things. Like I can definitely do the research to find out like what I think people may click on, right? Use the right phrases, the right keywords, figure out what opportunities are available using different tools. But at the end of the day, it's just like, well, how did this piece of content do overall versus this other piece of content? But to actually have an extra tool that would allow me to see that data, that would definitely come in pretty handy.
And from experience, I could tell you that oftentimes pieces of content or ads that I thought were going to perform really well are the ones that did not, and the ones that I really thought nothing of are the ones that were like top performers. So that's I've definitely had that experience in my life. And this also, I just wanted to say, your work in 2020 led you onto the Inc. 5000 list. So I see you on the list as a top fastest growing company, and 130% growth year over year. So was the big difference just adding that extra feature? Was that what like really kind of propelled the company to like to grow during a pandemic?
Content intelligence was a big part of us being able to sort of help our clients with a big challenge that they had because of COVID, was figuring out what content to promote. That definitely was key, right? Because it was kind of like an overnight thing where, and I say it very openly, overnight in, March, 2/3 of our clients paused everything they were doing with us.
Yep.
Right. And it was kind of like, obviously everybody, we're not the only one. Everybody was hit, pretty bad. But the reality of that is like, okay, well, what do? There's only two, things that you can do. Either you can really totally panic and you're like, oh my God, what do we do? Or understand that everybody's in the same page. You got to figure out, how to actually help them. And so that's where the whole idea came. Is like, okay, if they need to figure out what content is resonating to then, continue kind of building their community using content, this is what we can do for them. And so that's how the whole thing came about. So to your point, it was a big part of us being able to kind of re-engage, get them up and running, get them on pause, and then get a host of new customers who literally needed this software to figure out, how to continue driving ROI from content in this completely new environment.
So let's say we have like a smaller business, a company that's in the 6-figure range instead of 7, 8, 9, 10 figures of businesses. What are you engaging with those type of companies as well? If a small business wanted to come to you and wanted to hire you to help one, identify their best performing content for return on investment, are you able to serve companies like that as well?
So what's really like, technically, yes, absolutely, right? So content intelligence, especially with the free trial, like you can get it up on the website. You can really figure out what content is working for you. Not a problem. It's really about how much investment are they putting in content and content marketing, right? Are they producing enough content? That's it, man. But it's also just the content, like how much content are they producing, right? And that really becomes a difference. I mean, there are companies out there they don't have a lot of employees, but they just have a particular focus on content and producing content, and in order to sell their products. And so I always say it really comes down to how important is content marketing to your business.
Well, so okay, a couple of questions. First of all, I want to. There's a couple of things I want to find out. I mean, it's interesting to me that that a lot of people. I mean, this is something that Justin was saying. In this particular time, a lot of people have found the need to pivot. They've found the need to reinvent themselves. You obviously took this. As some people say, and I don't even know if I've heard this is not true, but the same symbol for crisis is the same symbol for opportunity in Chinese, I believe. But
I've heard that challenged as well. I don't know if it's true or not, but it's good. It's a good quote though, regardless.
Yeah. Either way, I'm going to get a tattoo of it, no matter what it says. It'll probably end up saying "evil white devil," But so you took this opportunity and shifted it. But when you first started losing clients, what was kind of going through your mind? Was there that moment of panic, or did you like? You said you were like, okay, I'm just going to keep calm. But what was that time like for you?
It was my co-founder, and so he's my brother, and we built this our second company together. So it was really kind of getting together and understanding like, what's happening. Like, we've been through multiple recessions, right? So whether it was like, our first company, like right after we went live, like the whole bubble burst, right? And, the .com burst, and we had to figure out how to survive that, right? By keeping costs down. That was really the key then, right? And then you had the 2008 financial kind of, blow up, which we were actually in the middle of a capital raise. We ended up closing around right as the market was crashing. So we had been through that. But what was different about the COVID, hit and what happened, and man, it was almost a year ago. It's kind of like, for us as entrepreneurs, it was like, okay, understanding what's happening and what is the impact of this short term and long term to our business and our customers. That was really important. And what was difficult was like, is this a temporary situation that is like, so you can kind of, we're gonna kind of get out of it in the next few months? Is it, is it longer than that? And is it or is it like taking the country on a deep recession path? And what you do in those two circumstances is different. So that was probably the most challenging, right? And as we started seeing like, no, it looks like the economy is still intact, although you could obviously make the case that it's not for everybody. And obviously there's a lot of people that are suffering and have suffered, but from a business standpoint, you can see that there are still clients that are fine financially. They can continue doing business with us, but so it's not a deep recession scenario. It's really a scenario of how do you help them with their business in order to continue doing what they're doing and get real results from it. And that's really what put us on this path of building content intelligence.
And I think like I remember when in March when this whole thing was coming down, there was so much uncertainty around what was really happening. Like I was hearing stories about grocery stores were gonna have empty shelves, and all these like worst case scenario stories were coming out, and it was I didn't know what the severity was going to be. And so I had, and I work with a lot of clients in the live event space, and the live event, that was quickly becoming no longer an option. So there were some very interesting conversations taking place across multiple industries at that time. But yeah, fortunately for a lot of certain industry business owners, there some industries were really not all that affected and benefited from the move to virtual, the technology moves and those kind of things. And one of the lessons that I learned over the last year was that the stock market has no correlation to the economy, because the stock market was booming it crashed. I mean, it crashed in March, but after that, it was all up. So it was bizarre. I was like, it was just bizarre to watch. I mean, I benefited from it. I invested into it at that time, but it never made any sense to me. So there was some strange happenings happening all throughout.
I mean, and then the other side of this was like, what industries, right? So like, industries that we were focused on, like we were definitely, more focused prior to COVID on travel, and obviously travel like had kind of stopped, right? So it was like, okay, now what industries are can be helped, right? Do they really need us right now? And healthcare actually became a very very important industry. Whereas prior to COVID, we had barely any healthcare customers, and it became, we even put out a press release that just was on the distribution side, but any company that puts out their content through our platform, we would match it at 100%. So it essentially goes to more people, and that was also very effective. So essentially, like healthcare became important vertical for us. Financial services became important. All these industries that during COVID actually kind of was a real need for people.
And I would think like healthcare, for instance, one of the things that content probably was tackling was the taking down people's guards from even leaving their houses to go get traditional physicals and things like that. Because I know that in the beginning of this, I was extremely cautious, where I pretty much locked down for a couple months in my home. And then after that, I always wear a mask and I take that precautions, but I started leaving the house again and kind of being a bit more of a normal lifestyle, a bit more, as normal as it can get this day and age. But I think that there was probably a role for content and what you were doing and kind of bringing some sense of normalcy back to people and letting them feel confident that you can go to the doctor and not come back sick with COVID. You can leave your, those kind of things. There was so much misinformation too, which is a whole separate topic. But I mean, beyond just like allaying fears, there was also battling misinformation too. So I see where content really probably benefited the health industry.
I would. That's a very good point you're making. Which we definitely have seen the trend that in the past year, content has become that much more strategic to every company, and it comes from a place of necessity. It's like, okay, are we open? Are we closed? Are stores available? Are they not? Like, just some of it is just sheer informative stuff that you got to get out there, and content does a really good job of that. And it's education, right? It's like, well, what are we? And then third one is like just being able to like offer some value, right? And say, hey, look, we know you're going through a tough time. Here's what we're doing to help. So in all of those kind of informing, education, or just trying to be helpful, content does a really good job of that. So we've definitely seen brands that, even when content wasn't a particular focus, all of a sudden through their agencies or through their comms team, they're producing a lot more in order to stay connected to their customers.
So the question I have is, you probably are noticing certain trends as far as like the types of content that seem to get the most interaction overall, because that's the other thing. It seems like there's always a switch between like, well, video and then short video and then long video and then long articles. And what have you noticed lately that people seem to be gravitating towards the most?
So I'm not going to say podcast because we're not yet distributing podcasts or measuring podcasts. You guys already know that. I mean, there has been this incredible consumption of podcasts that's happened in the past year. Obviously with now platform like Clubhouse. I mean, that the audio has become a very, very important medium, and we're not yet measuring that. We're not yet distributing that. I think that's going to change in the years to come. But outside of that, where we focus on is really written content, articles, and these articles could be anywhere from like top of the funnel focus, where it's just talking about lifestyle and things that everybody's interested in, to know about. It could be kind of middle of the funnel, where it's comparing different offerings, or different like insurance, like life insurance, for example. One of our clients, Mutual of Omaha, amazing blog. They have all kind of information about like overall about why you should get life insurance, all the way down to different kind of life insurance. Way down the funnel, they have a calculator that literally helps somebody figure out how much life insurance. I know not the sexiest category, but it's the way they're essentially guiding their customer all the way down the funnel. So what has been particularly interesting, especially with content intelligence, is seeing how different types of content is basically hitting a consumer at different stages of the funnel, and at what point do you need to show them what content to continue driving them down the funnel to ultimately take some sort of an action. That's been very interesting, and it is definitely something that with the data we're getting from content intelligence, our customers are finding that like that whole consumer journey is really fascinating, because it's totally different than what they thought, right? There's always this like light bulb that goes off and say, wow, like we didn't really think the customer journey is going from these type of articles, for example, to the calculator. We thought they needed a piece of information more. Why don't we just eliminate that step? And then all of a sudden, you get 10,000 more people going to your online calculator, which is what you wanted them to do. So that's that whole, we really geek out over that stuff with our clients, and they love it because it just gets them, gets them so much more from the content that they're producing.
I think that's like, that's the power of AI, and that's the power of data, where you take the emotion and you take the biases out of it, and you actually just look at the raw data and you get to see what really is true. Now, I wanted to ask you a little bit about the way that your AI functions. What are some of the metrics you're looking for when somebody's consuming content? Are you running like heat maps and kind of recording sessions when people are reading articles? Are you are you tracking their mouse clicks? I mean, what are you tracking specifically? What is the AI? What are the metrics that are going to determine how engaged somebody is with a specific piece of content?
So that's a really great question. One of the first things that we're measuring is the amount of time somebody's spending on the content, right? So it's like you're ending on the page, how much time are you spending? Then we move into the scrolling, right? Are they scrolling, are they not? Then we move into probably the most important metric, which is after they see a piece of content, are they actually clicking on the call to action and at what rate? And to simplify it, we're literally focused on getting the most amount of people that are seeing the content to then click on the call to action. And that is where the AI is coming in, and it's really figuring out, well, they're on, and using all the measurement tools of like, is it a particular amount of time after they're on the article that we should serve this? What is the optimum title and headline on that call to action that will get their attention? And these are the things that it's basically optimizing with all these parameters to get them to click and end up, basically going to their specific landing page.
So we're starting to creep to the end of the show here, but there's a few questions that I definitely have regarding like the future of AI and marketing. Do you see like more trends where AI is going to be used? Do you think it'll ever replace traditional marketers? I mean, like, where do you think the future of AI and marketing is?
It's interesting you say that, and I've always been a huge fan of AI. Just like growing up, like in high school, we ended up building a robot that was just like it didn't have any AI, but if it did, it ran and like picked up a beer, right? And I'm like, okay, if it did, then it would be a lot more intelligence in getting you a cold beer and delivering it at the right time. And so I've always been a huge fan of it. But I've always kind of thought about AI as, helping humans function better, right? So whether it's in your health and fitness or in, just figuring like having that robot in every home where it's like assisting you with what you need, to helping you drive results with marketing, we've always seen it as, it's like technology taken to that next level, adding a layer of intelligence that drives results. So that's kind of
what is my function? You serve butter. Oh right. God, if you're a Rick and Morty fan.
and in particular for content, we're trying to figure out, okay, if you put this on your website, now you can get a lot more intelligent and figure out what kind of content you got to produce and what kind of content is driving ROI. So hopefully it'll generate you more time to do more strategic stuff that will deliver like results. So overall, kind of that's how we've always kind of looked at it and approached it. But is there a crazy dark side to like the AI that could then ultimately like control all of us, and like what if like the machines take over? Like you think about that stuff. I mean, I know Elon Musk has been I think he's been pretty adamant about like where it could go, right? So there's always.
Does it really matter if we're already in a simulation? I mean,
right. This is already the Matrix.
Yeah.
So. It's either that, or right now I'm just like in an insane asylum, just banging my head against the wall, talking into a banana, thinking I'm on a
drooling,
podcast,
just dripping down your mouth.
Marketing Geeks, I got AI in my brain, But I think I'm here. I don't know,
I'd say it's a 50% chance of that.
So I mean, we're spending so much time on Zoom. Who knows? Yeah. Very possible.
I know it's like every day is like, oh, it's Groundhog Day again. Time is just doing weird stuff. I don't even know.
Before we wrap, I do want to ask. So, where's like the direction of inPowered going for 2021? Tell me a little bit about like where you see the company's growth and kind of and also again like where people can find the site and start a demo and kind of get started with you.
Yeah. So our whole kind of focus for this year has been, first and foremost, businesses are starting to open up. There's more, there's like, there's the horizon of like getting everybody vaccinated. So there's that feeling of getting back to normalcy, which I think is just useful for any business out there trying to plan the year. For us in particular, it's kind of like, what we did last year is introduce content intelligence, offer it, with a free trial and getting, real value kind of delivered to our existing customers. So 2021 is really taking that to a lot of new customers, right? We know there's lots of content marketers out there who are currently not using AI to deliver results from their content. And that's leaving a lot of money on the table. That's leaving opportunity on the table. So we're looking to really get them engaged, get them using the software. The trial still stands. We've decided to extend that 60 days trial, and making sure that like you can literally go on the website right now, content intelligence, request a demo. Right after that, you get your login. You can implement it on your website and go live with it and see the data for yourself. So we've been investing a ton of resources into making that available and ready to go. And this is the year where we're really looking to get that in the hands of as many brands as we can possibly do in a span of 1 year.
And that's inPowered.ai if
Yep.
anybody is interested. Well, fascinating stuff. And I every time I hear one of these steps towards like, AI assisted marketing, I always wonder how long do I have? I mean, being a marketer, I've been disrupted so many times. I remember when I started building websites, it was like you knew some secret language that only the pharaohs knew or whatever, and then building a website became so easy. I'm like, well, I'm out of business doing that. So it's always interesting doing this because there's always a new tool and you always have to reinvent what you're doing. But it always comes down to always good content, hitting the right niche, giving the right message, being in integrity, and that never changes. I don't think it ever will.
My understanding is that there's some pretty powerful AI for writing creative content and writing like headlines and things like that that's not necessarily available to the public but is in existence. So like even people like me, like copywriters or creatives that write headlines and things like that, like I mean everybody overall is going to be in jeopardy at some point, because it's coming. I mean there's no question that AI is coming, and it's got a exponential advantage over our human brains. So it's it's tough to compete when it can run millions or billions of equations in its own head every single day and just continue to become twice as good the following day,
And easily
So,
manipulate humans, So
and make us think that we're not in a simulation, which we obviously are.
as I always say, if the alien overlords are seeing this in the future, just know that I support AI and I love you. Please don't kill me. That's all I got to say. Peyman, before we go, I want to find out what are you most geeky about right at this moment? What's the thing that you are absolutely loving at this?
And this doesn't have to be work related too. This is, we're talking movies, we're talking pop culture, whatever, books.
The thing that's really gotten my attention in the past few weeks is really Clubhouse.
Mm-hmm.
I I got an invite, I joined it, and I was just going to different rooms. And I don't know, I never thought that audio would be such a great kind of place to, to socialize, right? You always kind of thought about it as like radio, and it's kind of this one-way medium. So that's been super, super cool. And I appreciate how raw it is. I mean, some of these rooms, man, you're ending up with like, I don't know, Elon was on one. I know Mark Andreessen was on. Like, you can get some real raw feedback from like some really smart people, and kind
Big
of
time.
what they're thinking, right?
I've been on there since December, and I've actually taken a step back from it recently. It's because it's such a time suck. I mean, because I was spending, when I first got on there, I was on there like, there was like 20-hour days at times. Just on Clubhouse all day. But I mean, I've run, when I was on there in December, there was less than 1 million people on the app at the time, and so I would create rooms, and like in would pop like pretty decent names would pop into the rooms, like people like Pat Flynn, or all of a sudden I'm blanking on people's names as I'm trying to say this, but I mean like well-known people in the business, marketing, podcasting communities would be popping into my Clubhouse rooms and coming up on stage. And I did one room with the two co-hosts of the Hustle and Flowchart podcast. We did a co-moderated a Clubhouse group, and Tyrese, the actor from Fast and the Furious and from the Transformers movies and whatnot, he just pops into the room. we invited him up on stage, and he just starts talking for like 30 minutes, and it's just weird to have like, wait, what? Right. So we're having conversations with like celebrities and like and well-known people, and you don't get access like that anywhere else.
Yeah, and this is exactly why I don't want to, like, I have an account, and I got a great URL. It's just Andros, and it's my name, which is fantastic. But I'm afraid, I'm terrified, because like, look, I got a problem with Reddit as it is, and now that I'm off Facebook, yay. But it's kind of like there's a rabbit hole staring me in the face, and I'm like, oh, do I want to dive down that?
It's already a lot more crowded. I mean, like, from December till now is a very different experience than it used to be. Because in December, you could pretty much look at like every room that was available, and you could kind of look, and now there's just endless rooms and things like that. So it's significantly grown bigger. It's I'm sure I spent less time on there recently, but I'm sure it's a lot harder to get on stages and things like that unless you're talking to the people in advance. And so it's not quite the same experience that it was, and it's probably going to continue to move that direction. But I like you, I didn't understand that I would even enjoy social audio necessarily, or find it as compelling as I have. But yeah, once I was on it for a few days, I got hooked, and all of a sudden I'm like, wow, this is amazing. And I don't even know. I mean, I wonder if somebody did the same thing with Zoom, but you like basically, you create like the exact same platform, but with Zoom, if that would also have the same effect, or really if it is just the audio that lets people be more intimate because they don't have to see their pictures on the screen, those kind of things. So I don't know.
I've been spending, it's been a nighttime thing for me. So my experience with Clubhouse is definitely after 7 or 8 p.m. And that's where I'm finding myself, like, kind of in different rooms and checking it out. But I bet you it's probably a whole different experience if you join like during the day, and
well, but yeah, now it's worldwide though. So I mean, like, if you go at night, you're going to see like Australian rooms. I've gotten in a few with a bunch of Aussies. If you go in at like midnight, especially in the Pacific time, if you go that late, you might be talking about that late. But I've done that.
Justin, what are you geeky about right now?
Other than Clubhouse?
Yeah.
I'm geeky about WandaVision, dude. That's my jam right now. That's the Marvel Cinematic Universe first TV show on Disney Plus, and it started off very odd, but I'm very hooked.
Oh, I can't wait to see it.
It's good. It's really good. I watched something else recently, but I already, I watch things and I just like forget them like instantly. So I'll just leave it at that. That's my geek pleasure of the week is WandaVision, and there's only 2 episodes left, so I'm excited to finish off the show here.
Yeah, I'm totally excited to see it. I'm waiting for my wife to see all the Marvel films with me. And then to wrap it up, my geek thing is I'm reading a book right now called House of Leaves. And this is by Mark Z. Danowski, if I'm saying his name right.
Sounds good. It sounds close.
House of Leaves is one of the strangest books I've read, but also one of the most enjoyable reading experiences I've had in I don't know how long. It is.
So fiction, nonfiction, sci-fi. What genre?
Okay,
Genre.
so check this out. It's about a guy who lives in Hollywood who has a friend who it lives in an apartment complex, and this guy in this apartment complex is this old guy who dies, and so they go into his house, into his apartment, and they find a chest that has a book that has kind of been compiled together but not published, and the book is about a documentary filmmaker who is making a movie about a house that he lives in that is bigger on the outside than it is on the inside. And as he's reading this book and putting it together, he's slowly losing his mind. And to the point where, but the way that it's written, like the fonts are all crazy and everything. And there's certain passages that as you're reading it, you think, wait a minute, he said something else before. Am I losing my mind? And
is this going to be like the number 23 where, spoiler alert, it ends up that he was the guy reading the book, is the guy that wrote the book?
I don't know. I'm really just getting into it. But if you are a reader, buy this book, House of Leaves. You can't. There's no way to do an audiobook version of it. You have to get it. It's like 700 pages, but it's also terrifying. It's one of the. There's a few passages that so freak me out in a way that a reading experience hasn't done before. So, House of Leaves.
Yeah, the other thing I'm doing, Andros, is I'm doing Andy Frisella's 75 hard challenge, which is his I have to do 2 workouts a day, drink a gallon of water a day, read 10 pages a day, follow a diet, and no cheat meals for 75 days. So I'm on day 8 of that. So I've been sticking to it. I kind of injured myself already, but that's okay. So I got to just
he put down the workout manual, picked it up, and then you injured yourself, and
No, I haven't. Still going. But before we wrap again, I want to thank Peyman for being on the show. And again, check out the website for inPowered.ai. That's inPowered.ai, inPowered.ai, and you can go there and do a free trial or request a demo on the website. And any other ways that people can connect with you, Peyman, like on social media, or like how can people reach out to you to learn more?
Absolutely. On LinkedIn, we have a very kind of strong presence there. Try to be part of the community, so feel free to follow inPowered. Also on Twitter.
Okay. Great. Well,
Awesome,
thank you so much.
I'll look for you on Clubhouse. I'll look for you on Clubhouse too. So
Love that, man. Looking forward to that.
Great. We'll stop the stream here, but please stick around, and thank you again for being on the show.
Absolutely, man. My pleasure. This was a lot of fun. I can't believe it was